people have a stigma about bankruptcy. People have a tendency to feel like it's a negative, and it's not, and you're looked upon negatively if you've had to file bankruptcy. And I think Carla makes an amazing point that this is a tool. Sure. This is a tool that is in our toolbox that we can utilize if we need to use it. And what do you find when you're working with people? Because I know everybody's their status and their imagery and all of this stuff seems to be very important, and they have this thing about, oh my God, I don't want anybody to know how to file bankruptcy. But.
Well, I have to say, most of my clients, by far the majority of my clients, they don't want to ever have to know me or see me.
Right.
People come to me and they're feeling ashamed, they feel guilty, they feel bad about all this. And a lot of that comes from the media and our culture. If you watch certain, if you watch movies or television, sometimes even the news, I saw it the other night, they were describing somebody who had committed a crime, and they just for the heck of it threw in the fact that this person had filed bankruptcy 5 years ago. And what in the heck does bankruptcy have to do with, the arson he committed?
Right.
But they try to tie the two together, like this is a bad thing and this is a bad thing. It's absolutely a tool. It's a tool that many people have to use if they want to go forward.
Yeah.
With respect to the stigma, I'll tell you a very quick story. There was a trustee. A trustee is a person who oversees bankruptcies. They administer the case. In other words, they're the one who are try to see, are there any assets that can be sold to pay off creditors, things like that. This one bankruptcy trustee, he's passed away now. His name was Stephen Smith, and he used to start off every hearing and he'd say, does anybody in the room have a nickel? Somebody pulls out a nickel and he says, who's on the face of that nickel? Thomas Jefferson. Oh, he says, Thomas Jefferson, one of the most brilliant men ever. He said one night President Kennedy was having a dinner in the White House for all living Nobel laureates, and Kennedy said, there's never been more brains in this room except for those nights when Thomas Jefferson sat here and dined alone. So this man's intellectual capacity was huge. We know that.
Right.
But the trustee says the one thing Thomas Jefferson was never really good at was paying his bills. He said Thomas Jefferson was always in debt, never filed bankruptcy, even though he was one of the people who came up with the idea.
Yeah.
He never filed bankruptcy, but he probably should have. He was in so much debt. He was $50,000 in debt when he died in 1826.
Wow.
The only way that his family could get him out of debt, because again, talking about estates, one of the things you have to do is pay the bills. So what they did is they sold his private books to the United States government because he had a massive library. And that's what started the Library of Congress.
Wow.
And they took that money and used it to pay off his bills. Okay. So as this trustee would say, if as fine, as brilliant, as good a man as Thomas Jefferson can have problems paying his bills, it's something that everybody may find themselves in.
At some point or another.
And what he would say to them is, so we're going to go through this process today. There's a brief little examination. He says, but I want you to walk out that door and I want you to put this behind you. Don't carry it around your neck. It's done. It's over with. You've made the decision. Now go out there. You're going to be one of the few people who's walking around without any debt and start your life over again. Start your financial life over again.
He actually says that to
Absolutely,
the folks that are there in the courtroom.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think what it did is it brought it for people. It brings it for people to a level where, first of all, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And it is an economic tool. It is a financial, legal, economic tool that very often has to be used. It's funny. I say to my clients, if we hear that American Airlines filed bankruptcy, we say, oh, I hope that doesn't affect my airline miles, or I hope it doesn't affect my upcoming trip. You hear about somebody down the street filing bankruptcy, and all of a sudden there's all these judgments.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what they did. They must have overspent. They must have,
Yeah.
So for some reason, we still attach this stigma to individuals filing bankruptcy as compared to corporations. We don't think anything about them filing bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But that stigma is not real. There's nowhere in the system. Nobody sits you down and says, now, what happened? Tell me what went wrong here, and what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right.
There's no character assassination here. There's no judgment. Again, a lot of that comes from what's been out there and how it is portrayed in the media.
Yeah.